Hello there, and welcome. Well, we're back to the regular content of the channel, and we've finally come to the part that I sort of prepared you with by telling you about my baggage. But today I want to start by talking about in generalities about principals and bosses, and then I'll bring up some things that I think it's important to consider. I know that John had a lot to say about this because since we both are children of a principal, we grew up sort of in the middle of some of this stuff. But I'd also like to know his professional view of it because there's something about being in the building with a principal that affects how you think about the position of boss in a teacher program. So the first thing I'm going to say is I want to talk about what qualities a principal should really embrace and what qualities that a principal can embrace to make the job better and to make the building better. So here's the thing. A principal is sort of like the chief operating officer in a building in most public schools. That person holds sway over absolutely everybody that works there, and also therefore holds sway over the kids that attend there, and touches the lives of parents of those children, and touches the families of the people who work there. So that position is weighty, and the difficulty is it's a middle management position. There's people over the principal, and the principal is typically an at-will employee. Typically, principals do not get tenure. They're hired year by year, and the recommendation to hire them goes through the superintendent, typically to the Board of Education. And sometimes a superintendent can recommend a hire, and the board can countervail that. That happens sometimes. So let's talk about what makes a principal really good in that position. And I think the word that I would apply to the very best principals is steadfast. The principal must be a steadfast person if the school is going to do its best. That means the principal shows up. The principal must be, for the purposes of everyone involved, consistently present. Now, I've had good principals that had a problem with this. One of my absolute favorite principals had a problem with this particular part. But the showing up is the first step to really establishing steadfastness within the building. So the principal's got to be present, and typically the best principals show up first and leave last. The second thing that a principal must have is objectivity. In other words, a principal has to dedicate him or herself daily and anew to being fair. Now, this means being fair to everyone involved. Teachers need to focus almost exclusively on students. Their job is to get those students as far down the line in education as possible. A teacher has that focus, but the principal is focused on more than just students. The principal is focused on the entire community of the school and is often a judge in arbitration, and therefore must be absolutely objective and absolutely fair. Hey, this is one of the most difficult things for a principal to be. And yet, it is so essential that in buildings where a principal is not fair, you can sense it almost from the time you walk into the building. Because it affects absolutely everything within the community. It affects how people interact. It affects how they move through the space. It is really, really important. Finally, the principal has to be honest. Any principal needs to know that lying is not going to help. If something can't be shared, the principals should say, I won't be able to share this with you. This is not something I can share. This is something that I can't make public. That's how it has to go. But a principal should absolutely be honest. And here's why. Well, I won't even go into why, but that's it. First thing, present. Second thing, fair. Third thing, honest. And that's what makes for a steadfast principal. Present, fair, and honest. If you have a steadfast principal, embrace that reality and enjoy that time working for that person, because nothing lasts forever. The idea that someone could be in a position like a principal's job and not be any of those things is horrifying. It's also, I'm sorry to say, sadly true. So, if you want to be part of a successful organization, you have to hope that your chief operating officer is going to be of the character that's steadfast. And if you have that, you need to do your best, even if you don't personally find them very appealing, you need to do your best to make sure that that principal is successful and does the job well. And encourage them when they do it right. Please, please, let your principal know when doing something right. So for some of this, I'm really struggling with the pronoun issue because for me, almost exclusively throughout my work, my principals were men. But that doesn't mean I wouldn't have worked for a woman principal. I definitely would have. I really don't have the prejudice that some people have about, I can't work for a woman. I really don't have that prejudice. I'm perfectly fine with having a woman boss me around. I did have an assistant principal, as I've told you about, my boss lady, who was my boss. She was the assistant principal, and I think she intended to become the principal. And I didn't have a problem working for her any more than I did for anybody else. And she definitely wasn't the worst supervisor I ever had. There was somebody worse. And eventually we may get into what made that other person worse. But we'll see. I hope you have a glorious day, and I hope you think to come back and see me again. You gorgeous people. You gorgeous people. I should pronounce it more clearly.